I think the biggest lesson or the biggest advice I could give to someone that wants to do a PhD is you have to be passionate about your subject. If you don't have passion for your subject, you will not survive. You will not manage it.
This video is with Kelsey Granger, who was my undergraduate student and then a PhD student. I've been teaching her
10 years.
I've been teaching her for 10 years, and now she graduated. She got her PhD dissertation defended, and she's off to Munich. So I'm going to ask her some questions about what she plans to do and what her experience as a PhD student has been. So, having submitted and defended your dissertation,
Yes.
How do you feel about it?
It was definitely a very long road. I'm very glad that it's done, but I have to say all the way through, I still enjoyed my project. I had a lot of horror stories from my friends saying they absolutely hated their project by the end, but I still loved studying lapdogs.
Okay. So can you tell us about your project then?
Sure. So my project was about the social history of lapdog keeping in Tang and China. I was very inspired by my little dog that I had. And from there, I decided to look into these small dogs that come up in several paintings and ceramics, but no one had ever studied them before. So that was the start point. In the end, I found out that lapdogs were in erotic boudoir poetry. They were children's playmates, but also they would bite children, and that they also became a commodity in a growing pet market in the Song dynasty.
Okay. And so what's your angle here?
My angle would be that studying animals, it's not really a new angle to say that studying animals gives a great insight into humans. But what's particularly interesting with the lapdog is that it was so heavily associated with women that it actually became a channel for female emotion. So there is this great poem written by Xue Tao, a famous Tang dynasty female poet, and she used the lapdog to speak about a drunken argument she got into where she injured the wrong person in a brawl, and she used the lapdog to speak about that. And that was very interesting for me to see how women are talking about their own emotional experiences, especially anger, which is something we don't really see often from female sources.
Okay, and this kind of sort of keeping pets in medieval China, how is that different from us keeping pets today?
It's not that different. That's the really surprising thing. So in the Tang period, the lapdog was more like a prestige good, kind of like Paris Hilton's Chihuahua. You know, it was very much there to be looked at. It was an oddity. It was a luxury. When it comes into the Song dynasty, there's this monetary mindset. Suddenly pets have a value, and not just lapdogs, but suddenly cats, goldfish, parrots, crickets. These could all be kept as pets, bought and sold. And because they have a value, suddenly we see that cats, there are certain cats that could be kept just to catch mice, but certain cats could be kept as aesthetic treasures. Lapdogs, unfortunately, do not become vaunted treasures anymore. They just become the little terrier that runs around in front of the house and barks at things. They stop being this luxury anymore. So they lose out, basically, when monetary mindset comes in.
Okay. And thinking about your PhD project, like, what do you think about graduate school? It was 4 years for you, right?
Yes, it was 4 years.
Was it worth it?
I definitely would say it was worth it. I always thought I was going to finish in 3, and anyone that says it is too optimistic because there's no way you can finish in 3 unless life just blesses you somehow. You always finish in 4. I think I was really lucky because I took on a lot of additional commitments. So I ran the newsletter and I was helping you do the Dunhuang seminars. So I felt like I had a really full experience. It wasn't just me in a room working on my project. I was also doing things within the academic community. And I think that really helped me feel like I was entering a field, you know what I mean? And becoming part of a wider community. I think that was the key thing for me, not just doing my own thing and staying to myself, but continually connecting with other scholars, other peers, and also other professors and things like that.
How important do you think this is actually to connect with the field?
I think it's really important because for me, it meant I got to try on a lot of hats. I used to go to different talks and hear lots of different scholars. And sometimes I would think, oh, that's really interesting, but I don't think that's a topic for me. And other times I would be really, really inspired and want to try out a topic I hadn't even expected. So I ended up doing some projects on furniture. which I totally didn't expect to wander into. And I gave that a go. And then I realized, oh, maybe furniture's not my thing. And maybe I should just stick to the pets. But I liked being able to see and hear other information and other research that was going on, because it let me better define where I was going.
Okay. And so what happens now?
What happens now is that I will be going to Munich to start a postdoc at the Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich. And I will be looking at horses in early medieval China. So a big change.
So what made you decide to go to Munich in particular?
I was actually approached by Professor Armin Selbitschka, because it's part of this Henrietta Hertz scheme that's run by the Humboldt Foundation, where they want to bring in scholars from abroad into Germany, and especially women. So I was really interested in that as a great opportunity, and it's a really great scheme. But I was also interested to go somewhere else. I'd been here for my undergraduate in Cambridge, and I'd also been here for my doctorate. So I've been in Cambridge for 8 years of my life. And I just had a little break in SOAS. So I feel like it was nice to go to a different institution, see how that works. And not just a different institution, but a different country as well. And Germany is also a really big hotspot for cynology. So I thought it would be good to make some connections with scholars that I hadn't really got to know yet.
Okay. And what about this experience of yours of doing your undergraduate here and then going away for 2 years, right?
Yes.
And then coming back? How useful those 2 years were?
It was essential. It was so needed. I think if you stay in the same institution from beginning to end for 10 years, I think it's too long, because you don't have an insight into how other institutions work. So you don't have that breadth of vision to know how other people do it. But also, I think you can get bored or sick of the institution. I was really glad, because I was ready at the end of my undergraduate to try something else. I went to SOAS, I had a great time. I experienced a totally different style of teaching and of learning and of research. And then I came back to Cambridge, and I was really pleased to be back with this new knowledge and these new skills. And I felt like I was therefore better able to make the most of the research environment here, but also to bring some new skills to the table. And also I knew about other libraries. That's so basic, but I knew what the SOAS library had, what the British Library had, what the British Museum had. And I don't think I'd have known those things or had the connections I had without having gone away and come back.
And how important libraries are for you?
Oh my gosh, I live in the libraries. I don't think, when COVID shut all the libraries down, it was impossible to do any research, because although you can kind of get by online, we obviously study a field that is unusual is a strong word, but it is more unusual. You can't just find these books in Waterstones. You can't get hold of these books often. Some of them are specifically in the library, and they're the only place in the UK that holds them. So I would say libraries are essential, and working with librarians is essential to make sure they have the books you need. You can find the books you need as well.
Okay. And so what would your advice be to other students who are maybe considering doing a PhD?
I think the biggest lesson or the biggest advice I could give to someone that wants to do a PhD is you have to be passionate about your subject. If you don't have passion for your subject, you will not survive. You will not manage it. You also have to actually be suited to an environment where you have no structure. You are the one that sets your timetable, your deadlines, and your schedule. And that can be really challenging if you've come out of an undergraduate degree and a taught master's, where you've had teaching and you've had these contact hours and a very strict schedule. When you go to the PhD, suddenly you just have 4 years to finish a project. And there are little deadlines along the way, but overall, it's very open-ended. I loved it. I really enjoyed having the ability to run my own schedule, but I know some friends that didn't work for them, and they left their PhD programs. So I think it's the two things. You have to love your subject, you have to be comfortable setting your own schedule and being very self-motivated, and also I think you have to have a good relationship with your supervisor. If you don't have good rapport with your supervisor, that's just a really arduous, long 4 years ahead of you. So I think the three things have to go together.
Okay. You were successful in finding this postdoc position in Germany. So for those students who are finishing their graduate studies and are thinking of finding a job, what would be your advice?
Apply 2 years ago. That's always my advice. You have to start applying way too soon into the PhD. My first applications were in my second year because I thought I'd finished in 3. What a dream. And I started applying then. I applied before I finished as well. It was high pressure because it meant that not only did I have to finish my thesis in good time to be done before the next academic year would start and I could take up a position, but also it meant that I had to submit book reviews and articles way ahead of time, way ahead of when you think. Articles can take, like a year to come out, 2 years to come out. You have to be thinking so far in advance. And I was very lucky because my supervisor gave me great advice and said, publish as soon as possible. And if you publish as soon as possible, you stand great chances in the application process for postdocs. But yeah, apply in advance and sort out your CV in advance.
Okay. In terms of preparing your career while still being a graduate student, what do you think the best advice could be?
I think the best advice is to, first of all, you have to have open communication with your supervisor. A lot of supervisors will just focus on giving you advice about the thesis. They won't really necessarily advise you about career. If you're really interested in a career in academia, it's being aware of how long things take to come out. The thing is that book reviews are quite quick to come out. They take like 6 months. But an article can take a year, 2 years. I submitted an article in 2019. It's coming out now. So that's 3 years. So it can be a hugely long process. And if you're applying, you want to have the articles on your CV. They don't need to be in print, but they do need to be, through the process and accepted. So I think the biggest thing that I feel I did right was that I put in a book review in my first year and I put in 2 articles at the end of my first year to different publishers. And my supervisor told me that in the end, the reviewers are always going to be the same. So you might as well try for the top journals. And it really paid off for me, actually. I learned a lot through that process of preparing an article, getting feedback, normally harsh, having to deal with criticism, and then putting it into action and not just, getting upset about it, like actually taking their feedback and implementing it. And those skills really paid off in my thesis because it meant that when I was writing up my PhD, I was constantly thinking, right, if this went to peer review, what are they going to say? What's the thing they're going to pick up on? What would they want changed? So I think I learned a lot, but it also put me in really good stead for my career. So I think publishing is probably one of the best things you can do.
Okay. And what about criticism? Does it sting?
It definitely stung. The first time I submitted an article was fresh out of undergrad. And I submitted my dissertation and I got firmly rejected. And I was very hurt because I thought I was great. And it was that realization that you can have flaws. You are just starting out. You're a young scholar. But I think it's really important to take the personal aspect of criticism out and just think, no, this is about getting the best article and the best argument you can get. Once you see it like that, then you realize that a lot of the criticism is actually incredibly constructive. There's nothing personal about it. They might tell you, you should do it in this order and why have you done it like this? But actually, what you're all aiming to do the same thing, which is create the best argument you can create. So it can hurt, but it's important to not let it get to you and just actually implement it.
Okay. And how important do you think that first book review is?
I think that first book review is really crucial because it's the first time you see your name in print. So you have that thing of, okay, this is serious. I'm seriously invested in this career. But also it's a low pressure way to start out in publishing because with book reviews, it's a lot quicker to get them out. There's a lot less scrutiny as well. But at the same time, you're also responding to literature that's already existing. So you get a good idea of what did this person do well, what did this person not do so well at, and having that critical eye then helps you in your own work.
And finally, what are your long-term plans?
Long-term
or semi-long-term?
Semi-long-term, I would like to have a book published. That would be a dream. I would love to be on Women's Hour on BBC Radio 4, and I would love to be a professor by the time I'm 40. Which is a hell of a dream.
Wow, that's very ambitious.
It's very ambitious, but let's see. I've got this far, so just keep going.
And so you imagine your life as an academic, basically.
For sure. I don't see myself leaving this field now. I think that's the real test with the PhD. With your masters, you're still interested in your subject. The PhD is this the career for you? And for me, I really enjoyed the research, I enjoyed engaging with the community, and I enjoyed teaching. So for me, I think this is my path.
Very good. All right. Thank you, and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
Okay.